Hello, everybody. I am just going to do my best summarizing this book because I read it about a year ago. I took a lot of notes and I was just trying to look through my notes just now, and I was like, you know what? This is such a giant clusterfuck that there is no way I could really put it into like succinct sections that would make sense. Okay. There is too much explaining of insane Scientology bullshit. There is too much of that insane bullshit within Scientology. And there are also way too many words that I don't even comprehend that are within Scientology. Okay? So I am just going to kind of give you a general overview of this book. And if you want to actually get the real information from it, well, then you're going to have to read it yourself. Okay? I was looking through my notes and flipping through this book, and I weirdly forgot how many words there are that are Scientologist specific, and that is entirely intentional. That is a complete obvious cult tactic, because if you have your own language, obviously they're speaking English because Jenna Miscavige Hill is American, right? But even though they're speaking English, all the freaking insane words that they use, it sets you apart from the rest of the world. Okay, you might hear Smokey in this video. He's here right now. It sets you apart. It really creates your own world, right? Creates your own world, and if you're in your own world, within a world, then you're better cut off from society, right? Which is the exact intention and the exact result of Scientology. Anyway, this book was really sad and really interesting and very eye-opening. I want to say that Jenna Miscavige Hill is, I'm pretty sure she's in her 40s now, but wow. She was not technically born into Scientology, but her parents were living in New Hampshire, and they just dropped everything when she was 1 year old to go live in California and be devoted Scientologists, okay? Which is very, very scary. Her uncle is still currently I don't know what to call it, the leader of Scientology. He probably has some stupid Scientologist name, but her father, her uncle, David Miscavige, is the leader of Scientology currently. So it's kind of more interesting because she had that close of a connection to someone who was so high ranking within Scientology. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this book really, she does go through her life growing up in Scientology, and then she also explains how she was able to get out of it eventually once she was an adult. But oh my fucking god, I was also just watching a completely different interview with a guy who was born into Scientology, and I am at a loss for words because Scientology is essentially a cult largely based on child abuse. Quote me. Okay? They do not care for kids properly. You used to not be able to even have kids. You used to not be allowed to be pregnant in Scientology, and they used to make you wait a number of years if you did have a baby, you had to wait a number of years to get into Scientology because they want to better exploit you for your labor, etc. Beside the point. But yeah, so she was exploited for her labor. I did mention this in another cult video I made kind of recently. She was doing work on a ranch when she was very young. And she also, I can't remember exactly how old she was. I think she was 8 years old when Scientology had her sign a billion-year contract. I think she was 8 years old because she was talking about how she had practiced her cursive to sign her name on this billion-year contract, which is, I think anyone who is even an organization like Scientology, anyone who has a child sign a quote unquote billion-year contract and they mean it seriously, you need to get thrown in a psych ward. You need to be institutionalized if you're that and you're being serious about it. Like, you're convinced that that's the right thing to do. You're convinced that that's in some way acceptable. Yeah, mate, you are not mentally okay. But that's obviously what she did. Clearly that's bullshit, but why would you do that? Why would you have a child who can't even comprehend basic concepts because their brains are so underdeveloped sign a billion-year contract? Are you kidding me? But they're not. They're serious, because multiple people have said this, that as children they were forced to write billion-year contracts about their lives, because Scientologists believe all these insane things, like you're gonna have endless lives and it's gonna keep happening until you obtain the right level of Scientology. It is absurd. Okay, anyway, let me just say this too, because a lot of people seem to be confused. The reason that Scientology can get away with all the child abuse that they do is they have found the loophole, and the loophole is religion, quote unquote. You are allowed to do almost anything in the United States if you are able to back up what you're doing by saying, oh, well, it's my religion. It's the religion of Scientology that allows children to not be properly educated. It's the religion of Scientology that allows children to not have proper medical care. It's the religion of Scientology that teaches children to abuse each other. And they do actually do that. Okay, I don't even know if I'm going to get into that because this is such a freaking mountain. How many pages is this book? This book is 394 pages. Sorry, 395 pages. So yeah, I can't possibly explain to you everything that's in this book in 20 minutes. Okay, it's not going to happen. But yeah, so kids are abused. Kids are withheld proper education. I don't know if you guys ever watch. His name's escaping me at the moment. Aaron, the former Scientologist guy. He always says, I'm bad at math. I was raised in a cult. And he's saying that to kind of deflect from the seriousness of that fact. But it is very serious. Okay? It is very serious when you quite literally cannot do 5th grade math because you weren't taught. You weren't even introduced to the subject correctly, or the subjects, correctly. The interview I was just watching with a different guy who was Scientologist was saying that he could barely write at age 18. He could barely physically write at age 18 because, well, Scientology didn't matter to them. They didn't care about that. Okay. I got off topic. Jenna injured her leg when she was very young. I don't remember the exact details. I think it was having to do with some kind of heavy metal gate and a car. I think she might have. I don't think anything in her leg was broken. I think she might have obviously hyperextended her leg and then it was injured for a period of time. But instead of, oh, I don't know, doing something reasonable like taking her to the doctor and getting it looked at, the Scientologists were telling this young child, okay, this child under 10 years old, oh, well, you're injured because of your life contract. You're injured because of your God, I wish I knew the freaking words, you guys. I don't know the words. I don't know the stupid ass freaking Scientologist words. You're injured because of your infractions. You know, they came up with some stupid Scientology reason why she was injured, and she just had to be injured. She couldn't get it looked at. She couldn't have a break. She was just injured. And luckily, her injury did heal on its own, but like, what in the fuck? Oh, interbulate, to upset or cause disruption. So if she was complaining about her leg enough, they might have been like, you're just interbulating, Jenna. Yeah, explain to me how that's not child abuse. Anyway, she also barely saw her parents. I'm having trouble talking about this because I find it so upsetting and so disturbing and so disgusting. Like I said, Scientology is basically a child abuse cult. But I don't know how any parent could be brainless enough to get into an organization and then the organization says, oh, well, you're barely going to see your kids because we're just going to be doing so much important work with you. And for you to be like, oh, yeah, okay, sounds good. I'll stay. I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're clearly not a good parent. Anyway, so she just explains, and you guys, the the indoctrination, okay, for these kids was so serious, was so involved, was so okay, his name is growing up, the username is growing up in Scientology is Aaron, who I was referring to a minute ago. But anyway, the courses they have to do, they have to like do it's really mind control. It's really busy work. It's really conditioning. Okay. The courses are all the things that I just listed. They're conditioning, they're mind control, they're manipulation. Okay. Because when you're not really learning anything that's really actually important and you have to like do all these exercises where you are told what to do, you're told what physical actions to do, you're told to make a model out of clay, all these things that aren't really truly aimed at teaching, aimed at learning, aimed at exposure, right? They're just indoctrinating them. They don't send these kids to school. They send them to indoctrination time. They shouldn't call it indoctrination time. I mean, they shouldn't call it school. They should just call it indoctrination time. I'm going to indoctrination time from 8 a.m. to whenever. Okay. But so, yeah, she barely saw her parents. And at one point, the way she got out is very interesting because I think she was really kind of on the path to getting out almost her whole life because she had that injury, right? And no, I'm not saying it was that she had that injury. I'm saying that she had that injury and there was just a list of ongoing other things that just kept coming up and kept coming up for her. And like, so her older brother left Scientology. I think her older brother was like 8 years older than her. And he ditched Scientology as soon as he possibly could. Thanks be to God. Also, her parents weren't even physically, they weren't even in the same state. I think she was in California with her father, sometimes. And her mother was in Florida doing some other bullshit Scientology work. So they were literally apart for her legally married parents were literally apart for years with little to no visitation because they had to spend all of their time doing Scientology bullshit. And then eventually her mom did have an affair. I want to say when Jenna was a teenager. I think she was 14 or so. Maybe she was a little older. It doesn't matter. But, shocker that her mom had an affair because, she wasn't physically with or even in the same state or even able to maintain a real relationship with her husband. That's intentional. That's intentional on Scientology's part. And I mean that, okay? They know what they're doing. They know that how their tactics affect people, and they want these things like spouses cheating on each other, like kids acting out extremely, like people trying to escape. Okay? They want things like that to happen so that they can continue their cycle of abuse. If they didn't want things like that to happen, then they wouldn't continue doing things. You guys, as much as I fucking hate the Mormon church, believe me, I fucking hate the Mormon church, they actually change over time. They actually change their stances on things. They try to make it more palatable because they just love their precious members so much and they want their numbers to stay up there. Meanwhile, Scientology hasn't done that, and that's why this stupid fucking cult will finally go to shit one day. I knew a gal in LA, and she was a little bit older than me, but she told me that her father was in Scientology before it got batshit insane. Apparently there were people who would meet up in groups and they liked certain aspects of Scientology, but they weren't, putting their kids in work camps about it. Okay? But then it got totally, completely, all of the way out of control. Like it is now and like it has been since, I would say, the 80s. But anyway, going back to Jenna. Sorry, I keep getting off topic. So yeah, her parents barely saw each other. She was in the Sea Org, which is such an insane thing to say. It sounds so science fiction and stupid. Maybe because this dumb shit cult was created by a science fiction writer, which is true. But so at one point she got in huge trouble because I don't even think she had a real romantic relationship with a fellow teen. I think it was kind of hinting at that. I think they were kind of going that direction. She probably just didn't follow all the rules, but she got in so much trouble for having been with spent too much time with this boy or talked to this boy in the wrong way. And I think this boy who she was getting to know as a teen actually also really did help her to start to question this disgusting cult. Because at one point, so this boy, his mother had joined Scientology when he had already experienced normal life, normal WOG life. You guys, they call WOGs. Hold on, I think I can pull it up on the thing. Derogatory term meaning Scientologist. He had been a normal kid, okay? So he was already questioning this disgusting cult when he got into it because his mother was deluded enough to join. And at one point he said to Jenna, he said, well, how often do you see your parents? She barely saw her parents as a teenager. Again, I do not know how that's legal, but that's how Scientology was functioning in the 90s. And she was like, well, sometimes I see them for 15 minutes in a year. And she meant that. She would see her parents once a year for an extremely limited window of time. And I think her just being asked that was her being like, wow, that's okay. That's kind of messed up. And at one point, she, I don't remember exactly, sorry. Like I said, I read the book a while ago. But at one point, she um, met a family who was Scientologist, but they weren't in the Sea Org, and they weren't as completely entrenched as her family was. And I thought that was so incredibly sad, because she said when she met these kids who are around her age, they had their own rooms and they had toys, and she had never had toys. That broke my heart. Oh my God, I'm getting kind of emotional saying that now. But yeah, like, and also, thanks be to God, she met her husband. Okay, sorry, before I talk about that. Yeah, she had already really started questioning it, and she had already had all these absolutely horrible experiences within this cult, right? By the time she was a teenager. And so she I think by the time she was an adult, she was sent to Australia. I'm not exaggerating, you guys. That's another great example of how cults control people, is they force them to move. And sometimes if you're not going across the entire world, you're going to this town, you're going to that town, you're going to this state, you're going to the other state. Like, you can't have roots anywhere if you are constantly moving. You can't have roots anywhere if you can either be in California or Florida and your spouse is in the state you're not in. That is really a control tactic that Scientologists clearly love to utilize and do utilize and have utilized. Anyway, she was sent to Australia once she was an adult. And because Australia doesn't have this place in it called Hollywood, California, the people who were Scientologists there were a lot more normal. And Jenna actually got to be friends with this family, just like a normal, I mean, you're not really normal if you're Scientologist, but a more normal Scientologist family in Australia. And she said she had also really not been around kids that much outside of the context of Scientology. Like, she hadn't really witnessed a normal family, right? Because her family wasn't even normal. But just being around a normal family, I think, really put ideas in her mind that she wanted to be normal and not Scientologist. Okay, I'm going to say one more thing, I think, maybe a few more things, and then we'll end this video. But something that seems very normal and doesn't seem like a big deal was in this book, but it's actually a huge deal, which is because she was in this fully immersive Scientology environment, right? They had mess halls. I don't think they called them mess halls. I think they called them something else, but that's very kind of United States Navy-ish, which L. Ron Hubbard loved to. He couldn't be in the Navy because we're not even going to get into that, but he blew his chances at being in the Navy, but he pretty much modeled a lot of Scientology after the Navy because he loved the Navy. But anyway, people would go to these dining halls for all their meals, okay? Her parents did, she did. They would have their food served to them. So guess what? They never prepared food. She got married at 18 to a fellow Scientologist. I think he was a couple years older than her. But she said that she was literally attempting to make her own food for the very first time once she was outside of this cult. Or not, she wasn't, she was actually still in the cult, excuse me. But once she was a teeny tiny bit removed and not needing to eat there all the time, she started trying to make her own food. She said she couldn't do it. I mean, that's debilitating, honestly. Like, you don't even know how to make any kind of food. Like, you barely even know how to freaking, like, heat up a pizza or heat up a can of soup when you're a full-grown adult. Like, really? But that's where these Scientologists are at. And a lot of them. And that's why a lot of them don't leave this stupid, disgusting cult. Oh, I was going to say one more thing, and this I thought was very cool, was she was still technically in the cult at one point, and she was just not having it anymore. She was just so done with this bullshit, and they were trying really hard to get her to do all the stupid, like, theatrical song and dance that they get people to do to stay in the cult. And she said at one point they have you hold these cans to, like, measure your happiness or something. I'm not kidding you. This is actually what Scientologists do. I wish I was kidding, but this is true. So they have you hold these cans that are connected to wires that measure your happiness or something when you're supposed to hold on to them. And she said one time when they were trying to make her do that, she took the cans, she stomped on them on the ground. I was like, oh, thanks be to God, Jenna. I'm so happy for you that you got the fuck out of there. Unfortunately, she and her husband are now recently divorced, which doesn't surprise me because over 80% of people married before age 25 get divorced. But with that said, let's also remember that Jenna and most people in Scientology, especially children who are unfortunate enough to have been raised in this disgusting cult, don't have an example of a healthy romantic relationship most of the time. If you don't have an example of a healthy romantic relationship, good luck. Good luck having one for real. Seriously, best of luck. It's hard to do when you don't know how to do it. You guys, there's like a million other things I wanted to say. I wanted to say something else. I was about to say it and then I forgot what it was. I'm just really happy she got out. Oh, okay, I'll tell you the other thing. Her aunt, Shelley Miscavige, David Miscavige's wife, has not been seen. Has not been confirmed seen since 2007. And David Miscavige still wears his wedding ring. So where the fuck is this woman? Why the fuck hasn't she been seen? And why the fuck is she not with her husband? That doesn't make any sense. Okay? Apparently she's somewhere in California. I also heard she was in Germany. But it doesn't really matter because that is sketchy as fuck. And also, I'm going to say this, and I mean it. Police are complicit in this. How are you not complicit in this? How can you not follow through with a missing persons report when someone hasn't been seen physically since the year 2007? Like, are you getting paid off or what's the deal? I guess that's all I have to say about this book. This is a really interesting book if you're interested in this kind of thing. It is very sad. But it's very... Oh, okay, I'll say one more thing, you guys. I'm sorry. I feel like this is just kind of important. One thing I was surprised to learn, because there are a lot of dumb shit celebrities that are Scientologists, okay? What I was surprised to learn is that from this book, she explains it, is that the reason there are so many Scientologists that are celebrities is because they specifically target them. They want their money. But for that matter, what they do is they modify the song and dance. They change the song and dance for the celebrities. They kind of tailor it to make it more like spoon feedable to the celebrities, and then the celebrities are all like enamored with it, and they're like, oh, it's such a great religion, it's helping me so much, whatever the fuck. Stupid shit. I will say that Scientology is stupid shit and it's blasphemy forever. And if you want to get on my case about that, Scientologists, come meet my husband because he has assault rifles. Bye.